Well, I'm on my way to Snetterton, which is a race circuit in Norfolk, and something I should have probably mentioned in part one is which circuit should you choose? Well, there's three kinds of circuit you're going to get on track days. The first being an airfield. It's an old RAF base, World War II, disused, normally in disrepair, and the organisers they use the runway and the taxiways with cones to make a race circuit. The trouble with these is that the road surface is very poor, so stone chips are more or less guaranteed, and you may even get a cracked windscreen. And because they're very flat and open, the sensation of speed is very low. However, the advantage is if you run off the circuit, you're unlikely to hit anything. They're often the cheapest days available as well. Probably the best all-rounders are proper race circuits that have been converted from old airfields like Snetterton, Thruxton, Silverstone. They have the advantages of being wide and open, so if you leave the circuit you're unlikely to hit anything, but with a good quality road surface. However, the sensation of speed is still usually very low. And then there's my favourite, and that's the purpose-built circuit like Alton Park, Cadwell Park, Donington Park, Brands Hatch, Anglesey. These are proper circuits. They have hills, which adds a whole new dimension to your driving. They feel more narrow because there's trees and things around, which adds to the sensation of speed. However, they are more dangerous because the corners are a lot more technical and challenging, which in many ways is a good thing. It's more enjoyable. But when you leave the circuit, you're much more likely to hit something. This place was so noisy I had to scrap the audio and resort to voiceover. What I was trying to say was find the closest petrol station to the circuit, because you're going to get through a lot of fuel. Expect between 5 and 15 miles to the gallon when you're driving on the circuit, and although some circuits have fuel, they are often closed and the price is very high. There is often food available too, but lay off the greasy stuff if you don't want to feel sick. This is especially true for passengers. When you get to the circuit, it's time to sign on. This is when you provide them with your next of kin details, and you just have to sign a disclaimer to say that if you get injured, it's not the responsibility of the organisers, which is fair enough. Then you'll get a wristband and a sticker to put on your car so they know who's driving the car. Once you've signed on, you have to go through a safety briefing. Normally this is done in one of the buildings, and it's where they tell you what you can and cannot do on track and what all the flags mean. But because of the pandemic, that's now done online, which is actually rather better, so I hope that stays. So I have my wristband now, so when I go out on circuit, they can see I've paid and signed the declaration and the sticker. I'm going to put the sticker here with your number. They know who you are. This is also when you can sign up some passengers. They get a different coloured wristband, and you can also add additional drivers to the vehicle. You do have to pay for both though. Then it's time to get your car noise tested. Each circuit have their own noise limits. It's normally around 100 decibels at 3/4 revs, measured at a 45-degree angle around about half a metre from the exhaust. There's usually a drive-by noise limit too, which tends to be around 90 decibels. This is where the loud exhaust you may have fitted would render your car unusable for track days.
Okay, that's pretty tame, 80.
When you have passed the noise test, you'll get another sticker on the windscreen so the marshals know you've done the test. Then you need to complete the sighting laps, but before I talk about them, I thought it would be a good idea to introduce you to the pit lane and garages. This is the pit lane, and the garages are over there on the right. Drive slowly in the pit lane and don't block the road past this line. It needs to be kept clear for emergency vehicles. Also, the garages are likely to have fuel in them, so this is strictly a no smoking area. So now I'm going out on the sighting laps. You normally get 3 laps and they're done at a reduced speed, so you can familiarise yourself with the circuit, its conditions and where the marshal posts are. When the sighting laps have finished, you return to the pits, and shortly afterwards they open the circuit. Exciting. There are 2 main flavours of track day. This is an open pit lane, which essentially means you can join and leave the circuit as and when you like, but there may be a queue in the pits. There is also the session format where everyone is split into 3 groups, normally novice, intermediate and expert, and each group shares 20 minutes of the hour. When entering the circuit for the first time, keep to one side. There will likely be faster cars approaching from behind. Take it easy for the first few laps and don't allow the pressure of faster cars to push you into making a mistake, because that could be very expensive and you may even get hurt. I will be taking it easy on this track day. I haven't been on track in over 2 years. I'm new to this car on track. I haven't driven a front-engined car on track in nearly 5 years. I'm new to these Bridgestone S001 tyres, and I'm new to these Ferodo DS2500 brake pads, which I'm well aware aren't as track orientated as the pads I'm used to. This is not a race. There are people out there who treat it that way, and I understand the temptation to join in, but when you race, you collide. It's not a question of whether, only a question of when. But if you drive within your limits, you should be able to enjoy track days for years without big bills and injuries. If over the course of a lap someone catches up with you, they are more than likely faster than you, so you should let them pass. They will appreciate it. To do it correctly, you indicate to the right, you move over to the right, and then they pass on the left. At least all the track days I've done have done things this way. But not only will they appreciate you letting them pass, you get to follow them, and you may even learn a thing or two from their driving. So, free lesson. I am by no means a racing driver or qualified in any way to teach people the art of driving on a race circuit. I'm just someone who enjoys the feeling of a well-balanced manual car working its brakes and tyres hard around a smooth race circuit. Nevertheless, here are some tips to help you go fast and stay safe. Notice how I do nearly all the braking before the bend here. This is lesson number 1. Your car is either good at braking or steering, not both. So if you finish braking before you steer, you will be more likely to go round the bend instead of ploughing forwards off the circuit. Lesson number 2. When you have slowed down for the corner, try to look at the inside of the corner about halfway round. This is really easy from a bird's eye view, but from inside of the car it's a lot harder and it takes time to learn the circuit. I would say here is about halfway round. Try to smoothly direct your car to this point, and as you get near this point, start to look at the end of the corner on the outside of the bend this time. Now you can gradually increase the throttle. You are basically trying to do every corner with as little steering as possible. Things do get more technical than this, but it's a good start. Also, doing it this way is safer as it's easier to judge how fast you can go without leaving the circuit. You may notice that sometimes I use my left foot to brake. This is just because it's quicker. I don't have to move my foot from the gas pedal to the brake pedal, but by no means it's necessary, and you can only do it on bends that don't require a downshift. And you may also notice that sometimes I rev the engine with the side of my foot whenever I do a downshift. This is called rev matching or heel and toe. I've done a video all about it, and I'll link to it in the top right hand corner of your screen. There is normally professional tuition available on the day, but book early because they do get booked up fairly quickly. Now I'm going to run through the flags with you. This is the yellow flag, as you can see on the right here. When you see this flag, slow down to about half speed until you see the problem. You drive past the problem and you see no more yellow flags. Just round this bend is the cause of the yellow flag. This guy has spun out from his own oil leak. A red flag means the incident is so bad that they've had to close the circuit to sort things out. Often you get a red light like you have here instead of a flag. It may be hard to see on screen, but it's very easy in real life. When you get a red flag, half speed again and leave the circuit when you get to the pits or as directed otherwise. If you see a yellow and red flag, that means there's going to be debris or oil on the surface, so watch out and be careful. On this occasion, it was actually caused by that Toyota MR2 who spun out after it leaked oil all over the track. A blue flag means you should let faster cars behind pass. When I saw this blue flag, there was no one behind me. As I was driving an MX-5, I think he used both the blue light and blue flag just in case. You can also get a black and white flag, which means you are either driving beyond your limits or being naughty, so behave, and you can get a black flag, which means there is something extremely wrong. Come into the pits immediately and talk to a marshal. It is not necessarily your driving, there may be something wrong with your car. The green flag means everything is okay and is basically the same as no flag, and everyone knows the black and white checkered flag, which means the session is over, return to the pits. A couple more things that are worth mentioning is that Javelin Track Days, who is the organiser of this event, operates a spin and in rule. So if you spin the car, you must return to the pits, check over your car and explain to a marshal why you think it happened, as it's obviously the car's fault. Also, if you want to film your track day, external cameras are rarely allowed. Internal cameras are, but if you use a window suction cup, it must have a short secondary tether. After your session, when you return to the pits, avoid putting the handbrake on, as your brake pads are going to be super hot and leaving it on can cause harm to your brakes. Instead, come prepared with a wheel chock. This will stop your car rolling down any hills. They're fairly cheap to buy from any motoring store. Also, it's important not to turn your engine off straight away. Leave it running for 5 minutes so the coolant and oil can continue to circulate, which will prevent hot spots occurring in the engine. Lifting the bonnet up for extra airflow will also help. 15 miles to the gallon. Doesn't get much better on track than that. I was expecting to see about 10. Can you hear that? Come here. Let me show you something. Or at least hear something. Hear the hissing. Yes. Did a track day, no problems at all. On the way back, got a puncture and I'm having to fill it up with air every 5 minutes. And I live an hour and a half away from the circuit. Well, it's the next day and as you can see, it's still flat. So unfortunately it hasn't decided to fill itself up with air and fix itself overnight. How inconsiderate. I've got to take all the wheels off anyway because I'm going to change back over to the road pads, the road brake pads. And when I get this wheel off, I'll show you the culprit. Just before I show you that, I want to show you why it's so important to coat your car with some kind of wax or protective coating. As you can see, there's no rubber bits on it today, but there's still a lot of brake dust, as you can see in the difference in colour when I touch it, but there's also some bigger bits of brake dust on there and they're coming off really easy, but if you don't protect your car with wax, it can be very hard to get that stuff off sometimes. And here is the culprit. This lovely shard of metal that has decided to get stuck in my tyre, which otherwise would have loads of life left in it. Every time you come in on your track day, check all 4 tyres to make sure they look good, and also check the pressures. Pressures will rise as they get hot. You don't have to keep them as low as the cold pressures in the owner's manual, but you don't really want them going above 5 psi above that. So this car's supposed to have 29. As long as it stays 34 psi or below, I'm happy. If it does go higher, I will let some air out, and I use this lovely pressure gauge. Really like this one. It's only about £10, I think. I'll leave a link to it in the description. If you do have to let air out of your tyres, remember on the way home the pressures will go down, so you may need to pump them back up again. If you find this video useful or interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to get my future videos. I now have Instagram and Facebook that I'm uploading to regularly, so if you want to check those out, they're both Conquer Driving. And until the next one, cheerio.